All right, we are now joined by Billy Quarantillo, UFC featherweight. Billy, thank you for joining us, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
We will take the first question from Jay Anderson with Cageside Press. Jay, please go ahead.
Hey, thanks very much. And Billy, welcome back. First of all, you've talked about it a little bit, but just want to get your take on the catch weight here. How much of concern is his size going to be for you?
No, it's not really going to be a big concern. Going into this, I wanted to fight at featherweight just to try to climb up the rankings. But since he wanted to do it a little heavier, they basically said, either take this fight against Spike or, you're going to have to probably wait a little while. And I didn't want to wait any longer. I thought it was a good matchup stylistically for me. And I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. He's really explosive in the first round, but my conditioning's right where it needs to be. So I still think it's a great fight for me.
You beat a teammate of yours, Alon Cruz, back in February. Does that make things a little more personal, or is this business as usual?
Yeah, I'm trying to make it just business as usual. I wasn't a big fan of that fight. I think Alon was a little bit nervous going into that one, and in my opinion, and I know a lot of people agree with me, I thought the way the fight ended was a little controversial because of those elbows that might have been to the back of the head. It looked a little suspect to me. So yeah, it's a little personal, but at the end of the day, whoever the UFC puts in front of me, my goal is to go out there and get the finish.
Obviously, we're in some wild circumstances right now. A lot of people, unable to train at the gym, at least like normal. Some people training from home. What's training camp been like for you, and who you've been working with?
Yeah, so we had to. I live in Tampa, Florida, and Florida in general. We did actually have to shut down our gym at Gracie Tampa South, where I've been at since 2010. So we shut that down. While we shut that down, I was basically hitting mitts at my house with a few teammates. But then luckily, one of my boys, Matt Frivola, who's a UFC lightweight, he flew down from Long Island because things were getting pretty bad there. Alon Cruz, I was able to train with too, and then Randy Costa, who's a stud. He's a bantamweight UFC fighter. I was able to work with those guys, and a few of the rest of my teammates. We were basically having private sessions, just with a group of us closing the gym off, and I was able to get some really good work in. It was definitely a different training camp, but I'm more than ready for this fight now.
And last one for me, it's going to be at the Apex, the smaller venue, smaller cage. How do you think that smaller cage is going to play into things?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty comfortable with that cage. I fought there in July last year. I had a really big win there, probably the biggest one of my career. So I feel pretty comfortable fighting at the Apex and with the smaller cage. And back, this is actually my fourth fight in Vegas. I fought twice on the Ultimate Fighter, and it was, there was a very limited amount of people that were at that fight too. And fighting at the Apex, I feel pretty comfortable with the small crowd. I'm actually looking more forward to that bigger crowd and that energy, but it's business as usual. We all have to make some adjustments and keep moving forward.
All right, thanks very much. Best of luck on Saturday.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And our next question will come from Jim Barcelone from the Miami Herald. Jim, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. What are your thoughts of this card itself? Because it's UFC returning to Las Vegas, which is so cool. And I know you said you're living in Tampa now, and I'm also wondering, were you hopeful to get on one of those Jacksonville shows because it was so close to Tampa? That didn't happen. But again, you're on this huge Las Vegas show now. What are your thoughts about all that?
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I love Vegas. I love coming out here. It's the fight capital of the world. We were trying to get on that Jacksonville card. I was matched up with Gavin Tucker, and so they basically said that Gavin, since he's Canadian, wasn't going to be able to make that fight. And when I knew that, and then basically as time went on, we realized that we were going to have to get a different opponent. The UFC called and said, how soon can you fight? And we said as soon as possible. So, I was hoping, because it was either going to be in Jacksonville or Vegas. It would have been awesome to fight in Jacksonville. My whole amateur career, we basically just drove all over Florida to fight. So that would have been a really cool experience just to drive, 3 hours away in Jacksonville. But Vegas, I feel pretty comfortable here too, and it's pretty cool to be out here. And even with these, different times, it's great just knowing that I'm going to be able to fight and continue my career in the UFC.
Safety-wise, what has it been like testing for this fight and getting ready for this fight?
Yeah, it's definitely been different. I was actually running late because I forgot my credentials. we're pretty much in lockdown here here in Vegas. We have our own little workout room, and it's just UFC staff and UFC fighters here. So it's definitely different. But this is what we do. It really reminds me of The Ultimate Fighter when we were kind of locked in a hotel and we just had to train by ourselves. So, at least this time we have to keep our cell phones and we can listen to music. So for me, it's just business as usual. I got to focus on the goal at hand, and that's to go out there and put on a show Saturday night and get that finish, which I'm always looking for.
And Billy, you work for Titan FC, is that correct?
No, I don't work for Titan FC. I've cornered some fighters there before, and I know their owner Lex pretty well since they they're out of Florida as well. But no, I work for Jim Gracie Tampa South, and then I do some real estate on the side too.
Very cool. And lastly, then, because I was going to bring up Titan FC starting back up down in South Florida again, so that's really cool because you mentioned Florida. What has it been like just moving to Florida, being in Florida, training in Florida? There's so many great fighters in Florida training and some very good training facilities.
Yeah, I love Florida, So I grew up in Buffalo. I moved to Florida when I was 21, basically to pursue my goal of, being a world champion, to get the UFC and to be a world champion. So it's been great, man. This quarantine, I was talking to my family up in Buffalo, and, not only were they on lockdown, but it was freezing cold up there. So at least in Florida, we were on lockdown for a few weeks, but I was still able to go for runs, go for bike rides, be outside. So it wasn't as bad in Florida, but I was really feeling for the people up north because, not only was it they were in lockdown, it was really cold and they couldn't really do much outside. So Florida is, it's my home now. I'll probably end up living there probably the rest of my life.
And lastly, family and friends okay up in Buffalo?
Yeah, everyone's good, man. Thanks for checking in. Buffalo, well, especially where we live, we grew up in a town called Lewiston, New York. One of the most beautiful little towns in the world. It's a little more spread out than New York City, so everyone there is doing good. I was worried. I have my grandmother's been sick for the last year or so, and I'm very lucky that she's doing good. She's actually able to go home. So everyone up in north is doing good. It's definitely different. My fiance couldn't fly out for this fight. None of my family. So it's just it's definitely a business trip. I'm going to go there and handle business on Saturday, and then fly back to Tampa Sunday morning.
All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will take the next question from Ezekiel Berganzi with Super Luchas. Ezekiel, please go ahead.
Hey Billy, how are you?
Good. How are you, man?
Great. I wanted to ask you, you were supposed to fight Kevin Tucker in April, but that fight got cancelled. And did that affect you in your training camp for this fight? You have to do 2 training camps, or you did one only? And how did it affect your body, your training, or did not affect you at all? How it was?
Yeah, no, it's definitely stylistically a different style. Gavin's really slick. He's a little bit shorter. He moves really well. Spike is very explosive early on. He likes to try to go for that finish right away. So it's definitely a different stylistic matchup. But I basically just stayed in the best shape I possibly could. I was, running, bike riding, hitting mitts pretty much every day. I knew the UFC was going to have fights sooner than later. So I basically just, I didn't worry about the opponent. I had a feeling the opponent was going to switch just because he's not American. And, it looked like they were just doing local fights. So the opponent changed, but we have a great team. Me and my coaches do a great job breaking down opponents, and I think we got this one figured out, and I think we have a good game plan going into this fight to get the win.
So, what do you think about Spike? Because he's a heavy hitter, while you are also one. But do you want to keep the fight to the distance, or you are going straight to get the finish? What strategy do you have?
Yeah, I know Spike. He's a fast starter. He gets off to a fast start. He's got a lot of first round finishes, but I do too. And a lot of times when people get overzealous, I end up capitalizing on that. So he knows. We both know that my conditioning is going to be better. The longer this fight goes on, I think it's going to favor me, especially when I'm just going to be breaking him down. So wherever the fight goes, I plan on keeping the pressure on the whole time and basically just wearing him down and taking him into those deep waters because he's not very comfortable going into those long fights. He looks like he gasses out, and we both know that's my strategy, so wear him down and get the finish.
And my last question is, I know fighters usually think about the fight that is next, but if you get the victory, if you win, do you have any other opponent in mind? Do you want to challenge someone or not? You are not thinking about that?
Yeah, no, I'm not really thinking about it. I would like to, I want to see how my body feels after this fight. If I go in there and, if I go in there without any injuries, I would like to get a quick turnaround. Obviously a lot of these, just like every other fighter, that fight island sounds very intriguing. After this fight, I'm going to help my teammate Matt Frivola get ready for his fight. He's fighting on June 20th. He's going to be in my corner for this fight. I'm probably going to be in his corner for his fight June 20th. So we're going to go right back to Tampa and get right back into work. And whoever the UFC gets me, I was matched up with Gavin Tucker, and that fight fell through. I was matched up with Chris Fishgold, and that fight fell through. So any one of those guys, or whoever else the UFC wants me to get, I basically want to just fight guys who are, either making more money than me or who are ranked higher than me. So I just want to keep climbing the rankings and, get that world championship within the next few years.
Well, thank you, Billy, and good luck on Saturday.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And we'll take our next question from Augusto German Niaz-Gay from Somos MMA. Augusto, please go ahead.
Augusto.
Okay, we will move on. We will go with Ognian Georgiev. Ognian, please go ahead.
Hello, Billy.
Hello.
Warm regards from Bulgaria. So, basically, your opponent is looking like he's going forward to crush you in the first minutes. Are you ready to meet him in the center, or you will try to figure out in the first minutes what he wants to do in the octagon?
Yeah, I'm very comfortable meeting him in the center of the ring and throwing down. If you've watched my fights, I can be very explosive too early on. I'm looking for that finish, whether it's the first, second, or third round. I think my resume speaks for itself. I've beaten some really tough guys. I was on the Ultimate Fighter. I fought in the Contender Series. I fought on every main event regional show that would have me. So I'm not really, obviously I'm not taking him lightly, but I know what I'm capable of, and I think my style is going to be a lot of problems for Spike or Hunter.
Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, Billy, that looks like those are all the questions we have for you. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Okay, thanks for having me, guys.